Last night, you spent 2 hours deciding what to wear to the party. This morning, it'll take you 2 minutes to list it on Depop and make your money back. Just grab your phone, snap a few photos, and we'll take care of the rest. The sheer dress and platform heels you'll never wear again? There's a birthday girl searching for them right now. Your one and done look is about to pay for your next night out. Or at least the ride home. Your style can make you cash. Start selling on Depop, where taste recognizes taste.
Zootopia 2 has come home to Disney+.
Let's go!
Get ready for a new case.
We're gonna crack this case and prove we're the greatest partners of all time!
New friends.
You are... Gary the Snake. And your last name? The Snake.
Dream team.
And new habitats.
Zootopia has a secret reptile population.
You can watch the record-breaking phenomenon at home.
You're clearly working it.
Zootopia 2, now available on Disney+, rated PG.
Welcome to Crime Besties, back to another episode, and we are here for another true crime story today.
That we are. Today we're going to be talking about Jaidyn Leskie. It's a really interesting case that happened in Victoria in the 1990s. So I've really enjoyed researching this one. It's been, again, it's one that's fairly close to where we live. So it's been really interesting to find out some extra facts about it.
It was one where I thought like there wasn't too much to it, and I mean I remember it occurring, and I was like this is fairly straightforward. But the more I got into it, there was more to it.
Yeah, for sure.
It's interesting.
Yeah, there were certainly things that I learnt when in researching this, so it's interesting.
Yeah.
But before we get into it, let's have a quick chat. What's been going on in your life? What's been happening in the last week or so?
This week's not been too bad. Been a pretty crazy week, but I know you've been busy with
We've
lots
been busy.
of planning, etc. for a particular special person's birthday.
That's right. My eldest son turns 10 next week, which is so exciting. I just can't believe
blows my mind.
We've been parents for decades. He's at 10 years old and he's huge. Like, he's tall. He's almost as tall as I am.
He's the greatest human. I just adore him. I'm really impressed.
They have a dress-up day at school today, and it was the theme was Wear It Wild. I think it was a fundraiser for the RSPCA.
Yeah.
And this just speaks to his character. He's gone to school dressed as a flamingo.
True Ollie style.
True Ollie style, because he's already got the fully pink sneakers. He has fully pink socks, footy socks that he's worn up his legs, a pink tutu. When we were in Hawaii earlier in the year, he decided to buy himself a pink flamingo shirt. And then I found this amazing hat I think it was from Big W.
Really?
Oh my God, it is hilarious. It's a flamingo like sitting on top of his head. It's very, very funny. I might even pop a photo in the show notes.
Well, I love that it's been like just the different emotions of the flamingo through the morning even.
Yep.
A serious flamingo, sitting in assembly. We've had crazy fun flamingo as he's got ready for the morning, and then disappointed flamingo when he's found his lunch wasn't the right one.
I know.
I just feel like that it is just so classic for him. Like this, I love it. I'm just obsessed.
Yeah, one of our friends went to assembly this morning and sent us through a photo of him sitting there. The look on his face was hilarious, and then he's got this giant flamingo sitting on top of his head. True Ollie style. So he turns 10 next week, and I mean, what do you get a 10-year-old for their birthday? He wants, actually, I'll tell you what he asked for. He said, Mum, for my birthday this year, I just want a hamper of all my favourite things.
I love that it's a hamper.
A hamper?
Like he's so bougie.
He's so bougie.
10-year-old asks for a hamper.
I know. He just loves it, and all his favourite things. So he's got some lollies and some footy socks and footy cards. He wanted some like LED strip lighting for his bedroom. So that's in there. And then we also got him a watch, which is neon pink, orange, yellow. It's really
he's
cool.
Gonna love that.
Really
Does he have any idea that's in
Well,
there? Like,
he's actually asked for it for the last few years, so
really?
it's been on his list for a while. So we
Don't you
thought
love that
for
when
his
you
10th birthday,
finally, when it just, when they think that they're never going to get it, and then you
yeah,
can just go, well, I am the greatest.
I think he's going to absolutely love it. So yeah, so that's kept us busy, and he's got a birthday party coming up. So he's doing splat ball, which is paintball, but it doesn't hurt for 10-year-olds. And I think some of the dads are more keen.
I think the dads are going to go to town.
Yeah.
I'm very excited. I want, details.
Yeah. So yeah, it's very exciting.
Yeah, no, so much fun. And I mean, I love that that he just enjoys life,
Yeah.
and he's going to love his party too for that. It's just awesome. He's just who he is. He's the best.
Yeah.
10. Oh, God.
I know. It's hard to believe, and I mean, you're not that long away until you're going to have a 10-year-old too. It's
No,
crazy.
It does blow my mind. Yeah.
Crazy.
But I mean, talking about our beautiful children, unfortunately, today's episode, we are going to be talking about some really horrible stuff towards a very young baby. So I think we better do a bit of a warning here around some of the content today, because it can be quite confronting. And we are certainly want to be very mindful of that and respectful, because it is such a young baby, and being mums ourselves, it can feel so much for Belynda, the mother in this case. For certain, it's not something pleasant at all. So, heads up warning for some of the content today, and we'll dive in to Jaidyn Leskie.
Okay, so Jaidyn was born on the 30th of April in 1996, and his parents were Belynda Murphy. So spelling plays a part in this, but we'll get to that in a moment.
Mm-hmm.
And his father's name was Brett Leskie. The relationships in this case are so complex and intertwined.
Mm-hmm.
Bear with us while we try and get through it.
I loved one way someone put it in one of the podcasts I was listening to, was that it's not a family tree, it's a family forest.
Oh, yeah.
It's complicated. But
it's so complicated. Yeah. So just quickly with the spelling of the names, I don't think there is one person in this case whose name is spelt in the typical way you would think it is spelt. So Belynda is Bilynda. Jaidyn is Jaidyn. Belynda's sister, I don't know if you know this, but Belynda's sister, she was born Katie, Katie, and she changed her name by deed poll to Katie, Kadee.
Yeah. And so she was so before her time. Like, it's one way of putting it, in that, like, that seems to be a name. Like, Katie is that name is used in Mean Girls.
Yeah.
I mean, and that didn't come out until well into the 2000s.
Yeah,
and we're talking 1997 here.
Yeah.
Well, before that,
yeah.
when she changed her name, even. That name was not a common name by any means. Like, I wonder, I'd love to know what made her do that, or made her. Yeah.
But then Belynda's parents spelling her name in that way as well.
One daughter named Katie, which is very, very typical name in Australia and that sort of thing. That then Belynda to come along and not spell it
Belinda.
Ever seen it before.
Yeah.
I wonder if that was a bit of jealousy in terms of a bit of uniqueness that Belynda had, that then Katie was like, well, I want to be unique too.
Yeah, I reckon
that sibling rivalry there certainly is a theme.
Yeah, do you want to get into why?
Well, before we do you want to paint a picture a little bit, I think, of the actual town Moe, which I think is another character in this story. So all this took place in a town named Moe, which is in Gippsland in the Latrobe Valley in Victoria. And Moe is an interesting place. It's a small town, but big enough that it has, shopping, all those sorts of things. There is definitely it was at one stage a very thriving small place, in that it was where the power stations were situated when power was a government-run service. But in the mid-90s, which is when this takes place, it was privatised. And so the plants were shut down in Moe, and therefore employment in the town of Moe was non-existent. So a lot of people moved out. There was so minimal people there as the employment rate dropped massively, created a lot of issues around the town. But it meant that the demographic of the area changed a lot. that in many ways the government had this grand idea as well of that it seemed like since the housing prices dropped so dramatically, it was a great opportunity for the government to find cheap and free housing for single mothers.
Mm-hmm.
So it meant that the area grew in terms of people who were on a lot of government benefits, those sorts of things.
Yep.
But not only that, the area was due to the plant itself that's there and the coal mining in the area for the electricity. There are a lot of health issues related to that as well. So people that are living in the area have been affected ongoing with these with health issues due to the thermal power plants. And due to the high levels of exposure from the pollution from the open cut mines. So another area of need in the town of Maui was also that there's been a decline in, there's been an increase in developmental delays in children. So children that are born in the area were at the school entry age, they was in around the 90s, etc. It was at about 15% of children starting school were starting with a developmental delay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in comparison, the Australian average is 11%. And I looked at also the data from Casey Council, which would be kind of the nearest suburban area that I thought was a comparative area of more built up area. So not as rural as Maui, but a similar demographic, that it just borders on sort of to where you're heading towards Maui.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the average there is 8.2%. Of children with developmental delays. So in comparing that to 15%, it's a huge difference.
Massive difference, yeah.
So there is clearly something in the water of Maui that's causing some health issues and also then ongoing developmental needs with children. So that sort of sets the scene of the kinds of people who live in Maui.
Yep.
So the characters then we meet in this story are some very, what we would call in Australia here, bogans.
Totally. Yep.
Yeah,
I mean, I think it's just widely accepted that Maui and the term bogan are synonymous.
Mm-hmm. Especially after this case.
Totally related.
It became a media storm around it.
Yeah.
Became a bit of a show. Yeah.
Yeah. I was listening to Andrew Rule's podcast in researching this, and he said a really interesting quote that I've written down, and it's about the township. So he said, "It's not only the story of a battered baby, but of where he came from, a place of broken families and broken hearts, shattered trust and broken dreams." So I think, it really gets you, that quote, doesn't it? And he's so right. It is a place of broken families, as you were saying. This is where there's a lot of housing commission families living there, a lot of single mums and their children, and that's kind of what the town has become and still is.
I think I read that the population was something like 72% single mums.
Yep.
That's incredibly high.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's huge.
So the characters in this case, we've got Belynda Murphy, as I mentioned before, who is Jaidyn's mum, Brett Leskie, who is Jaidyn's dad, and Katie kind of comes into the picture really early on because Katie was actually married to Brett Leskie first.
I think almost to the day, it's to today. I don't know that. Well, they probably got divorced eventually, but during this period that we're focusing on here for the Leskies, Brett and Katie were married,
and he was engaged to Belynda.
Yeah.
Up until not while this case was ongoing. Actually, they sort of split for good about 12 months, I think, before this all happened. But he was actually engaged to Belynda. So Brett and Katie were married, and then Katie suspected that he was cheating on her and found out that he was actually cheating on her with Belynda.
She kind of knew that already, that it was
her younger sister. I think there's 3 years or something between them.
Yeah.
So Brett and Belynda were together for I think about 3 years.
Yeah. So because Brett first showed on the scene when Belynda was only 13.
Yeah.
Apparently, even their mum sort of spied this whole that Brett had a bit of an eye for the younger sister.
Yeah.
So and then she was only 13 at the time, which it's a bit. She's too young to be having some guy look her up and down. So, and obviously Katie and Brett got together when she was pregnant, and Brett believed it was with his child, but it was not.
It wasn't.
No.
I don't think there's any relationship that doesn't include infidelity in this.
No, they all got overlap.
And they all overlap.
Yeah.
So Brett and Belynda had a baby together, first of all, a daughter. And she was born about 2 years, I think, before Jaidyn was born.
Yeah. Yeah.
Roughly.
Yeah, because
Or is it? No, it was about 18 months
they're
in
pretty
between,
close.
I think. Yeah, they're pretty close in age. And then Brett actually owned a business with a man named Greg. Now, okay, just quickly on names. There are two ways I've heard Greg's surname said, and we're not quite sure which one's correct. So I'll say it both ways, and then from then on we will just call him Greg.
So, like knocking our tongues all twisted around.
That's it. So I've heard him be called Greg Domasevich or Greg Domasevich. My inkling would be to say Domasevich, but I actually don't know whether that's right or not. Anyway, so Greg. Greg and Brett were best friends. They owned a business together, and that is how Greg was introduced into this story. And he and Belynda were having an affair.
Well, Katie actually orchestrated that, too, because she was not real happy about her younger sister, obviously now
being with Brett.
So
things were going better than the relationship between Brett and Katie because they'd been together much longer.
Yeah, and 2 kids together.
And they had 2 kids together.
I think even at that stage, Katie had a third child to a third bloke.
Yeah.
So so things were going well for Belynda and Brett in a lot of ways. So so she thought she'd make sure that didn't last.
Yeah, and orchestrate,
Yeah. And from all accounts, from what I can gather, Greg was aware of what Katie was doing. Like he was part of it. He was like, yeah, sure, I'll do that. Like, I'll split them up with you. No worries. Yep. It wasn't like she was just putting them in front of each other and hoping for the best. It was a full-blown plan.
Actively pursuing it. Yeah. So that's an interesting one.
Yeah.
When Brett found out, because I think they were sort of seeing each other in secret at the start. They didn't want anyone to know, but Brett eventually found out and he left. He picked up and left and went to Perth. Couldn't have gotten further away if he tried. And so at the time of this incident, there is absolutely no doubt Brett wasn't involved at all because he was living in Perth and that's all been proven, and he has alibis. Part of the reason
he left for Perth too was due to something the cops were looking into as well. So,
go on.
Oh yeah, no. Where did I hear that? I did hear that in one podcast I was listening to. That there was a payment that went into Belynda's bank account, like a child support payment of some sort, government payment that went missing, and clearly it was taken by someone who had her bank PIN number.
Okay.
And so when Belynda raised that with him that the cops were looking into this because she had reported it, he split.
Okay, I didn't realise that. I knew he left quite abruptly, but I actually didn't realise that was why.
Yeah, yep.
So we'll get into exactly what happened with Jaidyn, I think now. It kind of leads into that. So Jaidyn was 18 months old when this happened.
No,
14 months old. Sorry,
yeah,
14 months old at the time of this.
I remember. I mean, I remember this case in 1997. I must have been 16. So, it was old enough to remember all this happening in real time.
Mm-hmm.
But when I heard how old he was in the first documentary I looked at, it was like, oh God, was he really that young? Like to me, I had this 2 to 3 year old in my brain.
Me too. And when I look at photos of him now, when I was researching this, he does look older than 14 months old. Like maybe it was the way he was dressed. I'm not sure.
But when now putting it together, I feel like it's the way he was talked about because this is, I think, very valid. So Greg, who became Belynda's boyfriend, but he was also the babysitter, so he wanted to spend time with Jaidyn and was
only
asking
Jaidyn.
Yes,
he
only
didn't
Jaidyn,
want
not the girls and the
Brianna, which is the older sister. He didn't want to spend time with her.
No.
His fascination or his interest in Jaidyn was creepy.
And it was He's kind of like, this little man needs male attention to be brought up like a, and
he needs
well,
to be around
up
cars
like
and,
he had to be a man, be around. And so the way he's talked about of like spending time with Greg was around, they played PlayStation together and they worked on cars together and they went fishing together.
But he
So
was 14
in my
months
mind,
old.
that's got to be a kid older than 14 months. 'Cause
Totally.
that's a baby, a 14-month-old, whereas a kid sitting on a couch somehow interacting with PlayStations or something, or, going fishing, that's not
not a
child that
14-month-old.
young. And that, but that's, I guess, coming from the perspective of a different style of parenting.
Absolutely. And this will come into play later on, but Greg, while he was the babysitter and actively sought to babysit Jaidyn on numerous occasions, this wasn't the first time he'd babysat him. He'd done it before. I think for Belynda, she probably almost relished in the fact that somebody was willing to help her out. She was a single mum at that time.
It allowed her to do what she wanted to do, which was,
go out and get drunk.
Yeah. She didn't go out and have a few drinks. Like for her, like it was full binge drinking when she'd go. Like I'm not saying she did that every day, but when she did go, it was like, I'm writing myself off. That's, I'm not mum. I'm partying and I'm out to do that.
So on the 14th of June in 1997, Belynda and Katie were going to a party, and the party was in Traralgon, which is about 30 kilometres east of Maui, and it was a house party, I believe, and Katie's then boyfriend was also attending the party. So Katie had actually organised another babysitter to come over and look after her two children, and then also look after Jaidyn and Brianna.
I want to say the cousins, but they're also siblings,
like half siblings. Like oh my God. Yeah, because they're aunties and it's all a bit uncles and dads and it's all very intertwined.
So Belynda is not only Jaidyn's mother but also his auntie.
Yep.
Because she's Brett's sister-in-law. Yep. She's married. He's married to his sister. Yeah. Anyway, let's just not go there.
Cousins. So this babysitter was meant to be looking after the 4 children, while the mums and the mum's partner went out to this party. And Greg decided that he actually wanted to have Jaidyn and look after him, and kind of almost begged Belynda to have him. Like, she'd already organised a babysitter. She was like, no, it's taken care of. But he decided he wanted to have Jaidyn, and she sort of relented eventually. And so what ended up happening was she packed a bag for Jaidyn with some nappies, some clothes, some toys, a bottle, to kind of get him through, and said that Greg could have Jaidyn for a few hours. And then the idea was that he would drop Jaidyn to the babysitter, a few hours later, so that she could look after those 4 kids until, I guess, the following day or whatever it had been arranged.
It has to be said, I mean, he was very keen to look after Jaidyn, but he'd previously babysat him and Jaidyn had been injured. From reports, there were physical abuse happening already to Jaidyn in those babysitting days.
Yeah, so he'd been slapped across the face.
Yeah.
Someone he'd been witnessed pushing him over, and he would have barely been walking at 14 months.
That's what got me. Like, he was pushing him over when he's like learning to walk and things. It was just it's crazy.
Horrible.
He also it was only a few days prior to this occurring, he had actually shaved Jaidyn's head it's disgusting. So Greg had a particular hairstyle, and of the 90s at the time, mullets were in, and he had shaved his head so that the front of it was a receding hairline similar to his own. I'm painting a beautiful picture of this man already. And then he had cut the back of it into some shapes and things, triangles.
He put triangles and squares into shaved it into the back of the
back.
Yeah.
Yeah, which becomes a little bit relevant later on too.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, but he didn't treat him like a baby, that is for sure.
Not at all. Belynda was really angry at him for doing that too, and that I'm not blaming her at all, but it's interesting that she's then allowed him, because I think the incident with the haircut had only happened a few days before, hadn't it?
I mean, I'm sorry, but who is letting their baby be left with a man who's just done that to their kid.
And he's a 29-year-old man with no children of his own. I don't know. I'm sure she lives with the guilt of that every single day of her life. She would, of course, blame herself and wish she'd done things differently, but that's not the way it all panned out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Belynda and Katie and her boyfriend left their home at about 8 p.m. to head for this party. And I think I think at that stage, Belynda had assumed Jaidyn would have been dropped off to the babysitter, and she'd tried to call Greg and not been able to get through to him, but they decided to go on and go to the party anyway. But as soon as they got to Traralgon, to the house, she tried calling Greg again. And I think she said she tried calling him between 15 and 20 times between getting there and when she was actually able to get onto him, which I think was at about 10 p.m. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, I think even she doesn't actually recall those phone calls.
Yeah.
With how much alcohol she'd consumed over the night. But the phone records show that.
So she actually got through to him at 11 p.m.
Yeah.
That night. When she gets through to him at 11 p.m., he says to her, shit's happened.
Mm-hmm.
And that Jaidyn had burnt his bottom on a heater. And that he'd had to take him to a hospital, and that he took him to one hospital and they applied a cream, but he wasn't happy with that. So he decided to take him to another hospital for a second opinion. And Belynda was a bit beside herself and was panicked and said to her sister, I need to get home. I need to go and see what's going on and sort out what's happening with Jaidyn. And her sister said, oh, no, Greg's a jokester. Let's ring him back and see what's going on.
Which he was. He's well known for pranks and ridiculous pranks at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, that I think could be believed by her at that moment. He was known for having a bucket of fish guts kept for pranks. Where he would get a syringe and draw up the fish guts and then go and put it in his enemy's air vents so that the whole house would then stink of fish guts. He was known for that stuff.
To make a joke about a child is so off. It's not even funny, but it sort of speaks to the type of man he was, that people believed that might have been the case. So Katie rings Greg back and he's like, yeah, no, it was just a joke. No, it's cool. Don't come back. And so I think they were sort of appeased by that, and they were like, okay, well, Greg's being Greg, and they kept on partying.
Oh yeah, kept on partying.
And partying. And drinking.
And partying. Yeah.
So between midnight and 1 a.m., so the next door neighbour of Greg's, she rang Greg earlier in the night to talk to him because she'd lent one of his friends money or something and Greg was going to pay her back. Something really weird, something like that. And she eventually got onto him. They had a chat, and, that kind of was the end of that. Between midnight and 1 a.m., that neighbour heard Greg's car start. And she is adamant to this day that it was between midnight and 1 a.m. And that's really important for the timeline of this story. It wasn't at 3 a.m. or between 2 and 3 a.m. when he went to pick Belynda up from the party. It was definitely between midnight and 1 a.m.
Yeah, which the phone calls also align, I think, with that, where there was more phone calls being called and no one answering.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yes, someone can be home ignoring a phone call, but it lines up that he wasn't answering phone calls at that time either.
Yeah. That's it. So at this stage, nobody knows what's happened between 1 a.m. and 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning when Belynda rings Greg to pick her up from Traralgon. And he leaves, and his version of events is that he leaves Jaidyn on the couch in front of the heater, sleeping, and he leaves to pick Belynda up from Ryan's bar, which is where they ended up after the house party in Traralgon. And he tells Belynda at that point that Jaidyn is at Maryvale Hospital.
Is that the one that was still being built?
Yep.
Didn't exist yet?
Yep. wasn't fully functional as a hospital. Certainly, I don't think at the time had an emergency department, so it's not something, you know, you couldn't just rock up there and be treated at whatever time of night. The other interesting thing, which I find this just to me screams of the fact that he's guilty, is that he actually took Belynda's favourite drink, which is Jack Daniels, with him in the car and actively encouraged her to keep drinking. When they get home, on the way home, Belynda, thinking that Jaidyn's in hospital, she says to Greg, "You've got to take me to the hospital. Let's not go home. I need to go to the hospital." And he convinced her that she shouldn't go to the hospital because she was so inebriated it wouldn't look good.
Yeah, he really manipulated her in that sense of like, you know, that this wouldn't look good on you as a mother, like not on him for letting the child get injured on the heater, etc. Like, but this would look bad on you because you left the baby with me and you're drunk. And
That's exactly right. Like he's already starting to shift the blame. So he eventually convinces her to go home to his house with him, and they get there. And what has happened, Meg? The pig's head. This is where the story just goes bananas.
Yeah, which is, you know, this is where I think Moe really just comes to its forefront. That this is like one thing's happening which is bad, which then is thrown entirely over another bit of stupidity, really, at the end of the day. So there is another lot of people we need to introduce at this point.
Yeah.
So Greg was seeing a girl prior to Belynda of the name of Yvonne Penfold. And then he was pretty obsessed with Yvonne. He wanted to maintain that relationship,
and did maintain it. They were having an affair.
Yeah. But she was pretty done, but more so than her being done, her brother was done with this relationship, Kenny Penfold. So Kenny had decided that that's it. No more of this Greg business. Because he wasn't only just a bit of a weirdo, he was abusive towards Yvonne as well.
Yeah, I think forensically, when they did a forensic sweep of Greg's house after Jaidyn's disappearance, they actually found Yvonne's blood in his bathroom.
Yeah.
Which was, you know, just goes to show that he'd obviously been physically abusive and had caused substantial injury to her in his house previously.
Yeah. So Kenny had decided he wanted some revenge on Greg and to ensure that this relationship was done with his sister. Yep. So he got together a couple of them and they went to stake out Greg's house, and they took with them some things to throw at the house, which we'll bring up later. But so they sat on the railway line opposite Greg's house to stake out, make sure was there anyone home before they could head over the road and implement their plan. So whilst they sat on the side of the railway line waiting for Greg to leave the house, this is gold. So because this became quite an issue of like who did this, the cops were looking at why this occurred. Oh, where do I even start?
I know.
Let's move forward. So they're sitting on the railway line, waiting for him to leave. They see him leave and they go for it. They go across the road and they throw at his house a pig's head. So this smashes a window.
The pigs. No, they tried to use the pig's head to smash a window. It turns out you can't use a pig's head to smash a window.
Oh, I did not know this.
Yes, apparently it ricocheted.
Put that in my back pocket. Remind me for later.
Just FYI, if you ever want to smash a window, don't use a pig's head. They tried twice and it didn't break the window, so they picked up rocks and threw rocks to break the window. And the pig's head was actually found in the front yard.
In the front yard.
Because it hadn't quite, gone through the window. Sorry, keep going.
And the pig's head is relevant in that apparently him and Yvonne had actually got a pig to fatten it up and, to have, and so they had it like as a pet to then fatten up and kill and have for later. So that's why they decided to use a pig's head. I think they'd gone and done this to the pig, and obviously they had it hanging in their bathroom to then do what they need to do to slaughter a pig, but took the head and decided to throw that at his house. So in the cops needing to rule out then what their part in this was, of like, did they then smash that front window and then abduct Jaidyn? When the cops spoke to them, Kenny very politely let them know that there's evidence to show that where he was and what he was doing that evening. And so he took the police over to the railway line to show them, as one journalist put it, the solid evidence of him being on the Royal Railway line. So this solid evidence, I love Australia, and this is why, because every podcast I've listened to have described this in a different way, and the wording is just gold. I love it. It's perfection. So as I said, his solid evidence that was over on the railway line was also described as a petrified pile of feces.
Okay.
Said turd.
I was hoping turd would be in there.
What he had done is a shit as he was waiting out to throw this pig's head. And then
when you got to go, you got to go.
You got to go when you got to go when you don't even have toilet paper. So instead of using toilet paper, obviously, he ripped off the pocket of his shirt and wiped his ass with that.
I mean, surely that it wouldn't have been clean. It wouldn't have been clean. But you know what? Probably lucky for him he did that because it showed timeline. It showed that the way that they were actually where they said they were when they said they were there.
They weren't lying. They were fessing up to this crime entirely. Yeah.
And they just chose the wrong night to do what they did.
I think ultimately, yes, that's what I mean. Obviously, you know, in the trial, it was tried to be put forward that these two things were related. When unfortunately, at the end,
you think, how could it not be related? But my belief is that they
pig's
weren't.
head in a garden bed and a kid missing. Many
from
people
the same house.
put those things together. Whereas these things were, unfortunately, to me, seemed to be completely unrelated.
I fully agree.
It was just bad timing for Kenny to decide tonight's the night we're going to get Greg.
Yeah.
So that's the side note of that occurs. Just,
I love a good turd side note.
Too many cases we get a turd side note, but let's take it when we get it.
Mom, can you tell me a story?
Sure. Once upon a time, a mom needed a new car.
Was she brave?
She was tired, mostly. But she went to Carvana.com and found a great car at a great price. No secret treasure map required.
Did you have to fight a dragon?
Nope. She bought it 100% online. From her bed, actually.
Was it scary?
Honey, it was as unscary as car buying could be.
Did the car have a sunroof?
It did, actually.
Okay, good story.
Car buying you'll want to tell stories about. Buy your car today on
Carvana.
Delivery fees may apply.
So after coming home to the shattered window and pig's head in the front yard, Greg convinces Belynda to be taken home. Like he insists on taking her back to her place, and he does so. And that happened at about 3:35 a.m. Yeah. And as he was driving home from dropping Belynda home, now just very quickly as well, she was so intoxicated at this time. Apparently, she just went home and went straight to sleep. She completely passed out.
Yeah.
So she was probably not even with it enough to have the thought to figure out where Jaidyn was. And Greg had pretty much said that he was still in hospital and being cared for by the doctors and nurses. So she probably felt like he was in the best place for him at the time. Whether or not she even had the forethought to think that through, I don't know.
I don't know that she could have. I don't think she was capable of that at the point. To be honest, she needed to sleep it off.
Sleep it off. Yep. Yeah. So that's exactly what she did. Went to sleep on her couch. On the way home from dropping Belynda, and he was headed back to his place. Greg was pulled over by the cops. Now, let's just put into context where he's at by his account at this time. He's had a pig's head thrown at his house and windows smashed. He's been looking after a child who is now in hospital with an injury. He gets pulled over by this cop because he was speeding. He was breathalyzed and he wasn't over. He hadn't been drinking.
Only doing cones.
Yeah.
No drinking.
But at that stage, drug testing wasn't available, so it was a breatho or nothing.
Yep.
And he didn't mention any of that to the cop who pulled him over?
Nope.
Curious, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
he was already convinced. Well, he's already told Belynda that he knew who had thrown the pig's head.
Yep.
And he had when he saw that, he did rummage through the house and look through cupboards and things like that. And he states to this day that he was doing that because he thought that maybe Jaidyn had gone and hidden somewhere, been scared by these people who had thrown the pig's head. And so I think...
I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, his account of what actually happened once they figured out that Jaidyn hadn't been taken to a hospital was that he'd just left Jaidyn asleep on the couch when he went to pick Belynda up.
Yeah.
So as he's concocting this cock and bull story as time goes on, I mean, I think for him, when he came home to see the pig's head, he was like, oh, you beauty, this gives me an excuse.
Yeah.
This gives me, and he's over time tried, I mean, I don't think he's the smartest tool in the shed,
no.
It's taken him a while, and he's come up with several iterations of this story, but he's used that to his advantage.
Yeah.
And at 5 o'clock in the morning, he goes over to Belynda's house, wakes her up, and says, oh my God, I have to tell you, Jaidyn's been kidnapped. He's not in hospital. I didn't want to worry you. I thought I'd find him. So they go straight to the police station and report Jaidyn missing.
To which Belynda even says to the police at that point, oh, this is just, great making up stories again and playing pranks and stuff. He's fine. He's at the hospital. Because, at this point, she would have still been drunk. I mean, let's be honest.
For sure. This was an hour and a half after she's passed out on the couch, Yeah,
she's had the bourbon, so that's, she's out of it. She's not with it enough. And even her own words are that it didn't really sink in for her until later in that day when it was a news story. Where she heard, that this baby's gone missing in Moe, that it registered for her of like, oh my God, he's been abducted. He's not at hospital. Because her story to the cops the whole time, she's so bamboozled and confused of like, no, he's in hospital. You need to go and get him from the hospital. I don't know why I'm here telling you that he's been abducted. That's Greg's stupid story he's telling, but he's at the hospital.
Because that's what you'd want to believe. You couldn't probably fathom the thought that the person that you trusted to look after your child had
You wouldn't
done
want to
something
believe that, would you? Like, that makes it somehow your fault too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so incredibly tragic, but it was interesting when he was pulled over by the cops, they noticed he was a bit damp.
Yeah, at that point they didn't realise
why what was going on.
But having said that it still doesn't marry up with the timeline because when did he get out? When did he get wet? Like, it doesn't, because so what the cop's story now or after the fact is that they think that when he got pulled over, Jaidyn was probably in the boot. Yeah.
And that can you imagine being the cop that had pulled him over knowing that that's what the theory was? I mean, he wouldn't.
I mean, you wouldn't think to go, oh, let me check your boot because you might have a toddler in there.
Yeah.
Because, it wasn't forethought. I mean, he was known to the cops, but it wouldn't have been known to the cops that he would potentially have Jaidyn with him at that stage.
He was known to the cops, but not for murder of a young child.
No. More for stupid pranks. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
And, messing around and generally being unemployed and a nuisance to the community.
Yeah.
So I guess what then came to pass was that, Belynda's obviously realised that, oh my God, he is actually missing and he's not in the hospital, and it all sort of came as a bit of a sudden shock.
Yeah.
And it was a very, very, very long time between that date and the date that Jaidyn's body was found. Greg was arrested immediately.
Pretty much. I think it was like nearly, it was July. Yeah, he was charged on the 16th of July, 1997. So he went missing on the 15th of June. So 1 month later, they did charge him with the murder. They felt they had enough evidence based on the small things they had already found, which included some blood-soaked tissues, which were rolled up as if shoved up a nose or in an ear or something, and they contained Jaidyn's blood. They were found in the rubbish bin out the front of his house. The fact that he was the person in sole charge of Jaidyn at the time.
The last person to see Jaidyn alive.
Yeah. All those sorts of things. They felt that was enough at that point to arrest him. And so he was, charged on the 16th of July.
It's worth noting that
they didn't have a body yet. Yeah.
No, it was worth noting as well that it was all circumstantial evidence. They didn't have any hard evidence at this point.
No.
And I mean, they had to act, I suppose. This case got so much media coverage. There was a lot of pressure from the community for this case to be solved. So Greg was actually charged in the July, and it wasn't until the 1st of January of the following year of 1998 that Jaidyn's body was found. Yeah. And I believe that the circumstances around that were it was so incredibly lucky. There would have been his body was found in Blue Rock Dam, and which is I think about 18 kilometers outside of Maui.
Yep.
And a family was picnicking by the lake or by the dam, and it was just one of those instances in time. I think it was a fairly remote area. Not many people frequented that spot. And there was a less than 24-hour period where the coroner has said that the body would have floated to the top before then sinking again.
Just due to temperatures.
Yes.
And that summer had been particularly cool at that stage. It was only just warming up. So it was just literally everything aligned to ensure there was someone there to see it in that short period of time. The temperature was just right.
Yep.
It was,
the coroner said that due to the really cold winter and the fact that it hadn't yet warmed up into summer temperatures, Jaidyn's body was quite well preserved. Another thing that sort of allowed the body to float up was the fact that his body had been wrapped in a sleeping bag and weighed down with a crowbar. And it looks as though from the evidence of the sleeping bags, once it was looked into, that the fish had actually eaten a lot of the stitching away. And so that sort of released the body from the bag and he was able to float to the surface. His body was obviously, the family raised the alarm. His body was identified, and apparently he was quite easily visually identified. So that goes to show just how well, after 6 odd months in the water, how well his body was preserved.
Well, there was a question mark at one stage over that of like whether or not he had been alive for a period of time before being thrown in the dam. And one of the things they did look at was the length of his hair.
Yeah.
And it was thought that his hair was longer than when it was prior to Belynda leaving him, because he, as we said, he had had the haircut from Greg. And she thought his hair looked longer.
Yep.
But it turns out it was just because it was wet.
Yeah.
So it did look longer. But
and they also said that the skin kind of recedes a little bit, and because there's no blood, necessarily left in the body, it can make features look more pronounced or hair look longer.
Yeah.
So I think that was found to be a moot point. But I know the defence definitely used that as one of the things that sort of dispelled, or that I guess supported their case.
Try and put the doubt in the jury's mind.
That's
absolutely.
It.
Yeah.
So they, with the body in the lake, they sent police divers in to see what else they could retrieve. And they found, so along with Jaidyn's body, they found the sleeping bag that I was just talking about that he'd been wrapped in, the crowbar, which was proven to be Greg's eventually, that had come from his house. They found baby boots, a bottle, a bib. There was some evidence to show that they tried to forensically test and look for DNA especially on the bib and the bottle. Unfortunately, the DNA evidence wasn't conclusive. There was also blood found on the bib that was shown at the time to be from an unknown female donor. So again, the defense used that in their case, but it was later proven that there was actually just cross-contamination from an error in the laboratory processes. So that was actually dispelled, and the DNA evidence just couldn't be used. But unfortunately, that was found out after the trial. It was found out during the inquest. And due to double jeopardy laws in Victoria, once Greg had been found not guilty of this crime, which is what eventuated, he couldn't be tried for it again. So,
again now.
Well, things have changed now. If there's new, fresh and compelling evidence, that definitely can come into play. But I think that's not going to happen necessarily in this case with those particular pieces of evidence.
Not that wouldn't bring anything more forward.
No.
The other thing was with the bib. Belynda said that was not an item that she gave to Greg that morning. So that threw a little bit as well of like that there were items in that were found with Jaidyn that were not at Greg's house. They had to have been things he potentially, like the sleeping bag as well and the bib. I believe they think that he has gone back to Belynda's house and quite possibly when he took her home or whatever, grabbed a couple of extra things to be able to put it all together and put the body in the dam. So there's more evidence that it wasn't someone else because it was someone who had access to Belynda's house in that time period to gather those things as well. So,
and that also then supports the theory that he disposed of Jaidyn's body after dropping Belynda and before going back to her at 5 a.m. So at some point between 3:30 and 5:15 when he got back to Belynda's house, he's disposed of Jaidyn's body. And I mean,
the cops sort of said that it's a tight timeline and it's part of like what the defense used against them as well because it is a very tight timeline that if you put it together from the 3:35 being pulled over by the police after just dropping Belynda, he then has to have gone back to his house, gathered things, driven from there, which is then a 15-minute drive out to Blue Rock Dam, waded out into the water and to be able to put Jaidyn where he was in the water, he would have to have waded out waist deep into the water to put the body there, back in again, got in the car, another 15-minute drive back to his house, got rid of those wet clothes, taken them off, which there was wet clothing found in the washing basket, which unfortunately were not tested at all, but it was cited that there was wet clothing. So could that have just been from who knows what? But there was wet clothing there. So removed all of that, got dressed again, all those things, got back in his car and then driven back to Belynda's by 4:45-ish to tell her, actually, we need to go to the cops because Jaidyn's missing. He's not at the hospital, to then be at the police station by 5 a.m.
Yeah.
So it's a tight timeline, but it's doable.
It's doable.
Yeah.
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 The other thing worth noting is that the cops also found $600 worth of wet banknotes under his mattress drying out.
Yeah.
Now, a couple of things that makes, I mean,
we know questions.
I know, I've got so many questions. If you know you're wading out into water to dispose of a body, why would you keep a wallet with that much money in it in your pocket? But then he was probably, mate.
Questions never end.
What was he? Yeah. He'd actually given Belynda like $70 that night apparently too and said to her, go out and have a great time. So yeah, God only knows where he got this money from. He wasn't working at the time.
No,
he didn't have a job.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. The prosecution's case was that so while he was in prison awaiting the trial, he supposedly confessed to several inmates about the crime and about what he'd done. And one of the inmates who had nothing to gain from telling this story, because he was due to be released anyway, there was no benefit to him to...
It's actually approached him, not the other way around, whereas I think there were 3 that came forward.
Yes.
2 of them are questionable.
Yeah.
The third one is credible.
Yeah, because he had nothing to gain from telling it. And as you said, the cops went to him, not the other way around.
Yeah.
And he said that Greg had said to him that that he was working on his car in the backyard and the car was up on blocks. And on Jack's, was it?
Jack. Well,
okay.
Yeah.
There's it. Yeah. And that the car's fallen and hit Jaidyn somehow and like fallen onto Jaidyn. Now, I've seen an interview with Greg, and this was a fairly recent-ish interview where he goes, well, it couldn't have been that the car was on blocks because I had it on a ramp. I'm like, oh, my God.
So I immediately went to go and find the crime scene photos.
Yep.
After hearing that exact interview of him saying that it wasn't even on Jack, it was on Rance. So the crime scene photo from that day, like follow that exact from the 15th of June, when they took photos off his garage, I cannot see any evidence of any ramps. So the car is sitting there on the ground.
Yes.
So Jack's is the only option here because
there's no ramp. I'm assuming like a ramp for a car would be made out of metal.
Metal of some sort,
and it'd be heavy to move around.
Like it would be a construction of some sort sitting there. You'd be able to see in those photos. this car is on the ground. There is nothing even in the garage. You can see that he's got some ramps, that he's moved them to the side or anywhere else. It's a very clear photo of the car. So I know I sort of looked at that and went, I mean, this guy does not tell the truth at any point. His story changed a million times over. But at that point in that interview, I was like, if he's lying about that to this point where all these years, and I remember hearing that back in 1997, that the car had fallen off the jacks and apparently that had done that to him at one stage and he had injured himself, that makes a lot of sense to the injuries on Jaidyn. He had a very severely broken arm in the autopsy. And
a skull fracture.
A skull fracture too, which is what actually killed him.
Yeah.
But there was talk of that, you know, at the time the theory was that the jacks had fallen and crushed his arm, to which he then couldn't get the baby to stop crying and all these sorts of things. And that's when he's maybe hit him with the crowbar to stop him crying, and that's when he's actually.
I think the other thing worth noting is on autopsy, they also found that there was a drug in Jaidyn's system that was used to treat Parkinson's disease.
Yeah. I query where that would have come from for would have had that on hand.
I think it's still not known to this day how he had it.
But it marries up with the whole theory of there being an injury that's so severe that he's like, I'll drug this kid up to you know, so that then maybe Belynda finds him tomorrow morning kind of going, oh, he's got a broken arm. How do you do that? Maybe it was my fault.
Yeah.
But obviously that wouldn't have worked with the severe break that it was. The baby would have still been crying or whatever, upset. Mm-hmm. And it's then escalated that he's done more to the baby.
Yeah, and drugged him.
Yeah.
So apparently the drug can cause hallucinations and like out-of-body experiences, especially in the doses that was given to him. The other thing I found really interesting about the autopsy report is the contents of Jaidyn's stomach. So this is a 14-month-old child. Okay? At 14 months old, I would say a lot of kids are probably still eating, you know, family-type foods. They might be starting on a little sandwich, or they're eating little rice crackers. They're eating fruit. The only things that were found in Jaidyn's stomach were hot chips and Coca-Cola.
The Coca-Cola was even found in a bottle, like at the house, I think.
So for somebody who was so keen to look after a child, he certainly didn't have the skill set or the knowledge behind the needs of a 14-month-old to be able to take that on. Anyway, I just thought that was interesting. Interesting to note.
Yeah.
So the injuries sustained to Jaidyn, I mean, as you just said before, the injury to his head, the skull fracture, was his ultimate cause of death. The arm fracture had been attempted to be sort of bandaged up.
Had like a wood
splint, yeah. And I believe it like a loose fitting bandage by the time they found him. But
that's where I feel like there is weight to that whole theory of one injury occurring, him sort of going, I can fix that.
Yeah.
And it not going to plan and then going, what else do I do here?
Yeah. Instead of taking him to get the medical attention needed at the time. I mean, I just think it was an accident, possibly the first incident. Like if it was a broken arm, I mean, as horrible as it sounds, these things do happen, and it's not, you know, necessarily an intentional cause. But then Greg's actions were certainly with the intent to cover it up. It's not like he had Jaidyn's best interests at heart and Jaidyn's needs at heart. He's cared more about protecting himself than, you know, seeking help. And had he just taken Jaidyn to hospital with a broken arm, I'm sure questions would have been asked. I'm sure, you know, it's possible Belynda never would have wanted to have anything else to do with him. But Jaidyn would still be alive today if he'd done that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
In my opinion.
Yes.
Yep.
I agree. And because the other bit of evidence that was found too, which marries up with his story, which is where we get, I think there's elements of truth to what he said and all this in that. But there was also a bit of skin found on the heater.
Yep.
So it did definitely indicate that there was maybe a burn that occurred as well in the day. So this kid's had a pretty rough day.
He's had a horrible day.
Oh, God. Yeah. So, I mean, not pleasant.
Not at all.
No.
Not at all. Poor little boy.
Oh, God, yeah. So we get to then, obviously, the trial, which I think it goes a little bit with what we spoke about last week and the week before with OJ, with that there's so many misleading bits of information that have been incorporated in this trial that the defence did an incredibly good job at presenting doubt. So I think there was plenty of evidence to, suggest that who else could it be other than Greg? Well, yeah, it could have been the pig gang. So they were known.
They were known.
They were known. So, I mean, unfortunately, the defence used all of that to their advantage, and where they put the prosecution put all of them on the stand one after the other, thinking that would eliminate the doubt and say, put these people on the stand who are going to speak their truth of like, no, we were there, 100%. This is what we did. We're up for admitting that, but that's all the part we played. Even to the point where Penny Penfold actually admitted that the hole in the window, the cops looked at that and said there's no way someone could have climbed through that window and gotten in and taken Jaidyn because of the jagged glass, that things would have been more, if they'd gone in through that way, the glass would have been split in it. They would have cut themselves potentially.
And there was no other sign of forced entry or anything into his house.
Curtains would have been moved, and therefore things would have been knocked over and things weren't. However, they didn't fingerprint, which could have eliminated that again, that they weren't fingerprints of theirs in the house. So that's disappointing on the behalf of the cops, I think. However, they put them on the stand, and yet they told their truth, all these things, and he even said, sorry, I was going with that. Kenny Penfold admitted that, and he's a pretty well-versed criminal. He was like, I could have got through that window. Yeah, totally. I didn't, but yeah, I could have got through that window for sure. So, I mean, he was certainly not up there to lie. He was there to tell truth and not hide anything. But the defence, what he did was he used this boganism to his advantage, I guess, and he riled them up on the stand, and to the point where apparently they were banging on tabletops, and yelling. And I mean, they were fairly easily set off, these people. They were sort of people who you could very easily, fire them up to the point of aggression, to then put into the jury's mind, well, these are aggressive people, fairly easily aggressive people. Why couldn't we then jump to they could take a baby and do some pretty awful things to him? Yeah. So, yeah, the jury, I think, unfortunately, went the way they could only go because there was doubt put in front of them.
And I think the bar's very, very high in a criminal case, that, the bar to reach to convict somebody of a crime, especially a crime as serious as this, is really high. And it's high for a reason. It's there so that I think there's a sort of a bit of a saying in the legal arena that it's better to have 10 criminals go free than convict one innocent person. And so that's why the bar is set so high, so that there aren't innocent people in jail. Yeah. As a community member, I find that really uncomfortable. But then if you're that one innocent person sitting in jail, then you'd want that burden of proof to be so high that you're not going to end up there. So, look, our legal system is far from perfect, obviously, because, there's criminals walking around here, there and everywhere. And I mean, there's so many things we could get into.
With that, who are on parole, etc., doing heinous things.
Absolutely. Yeah. But it is what it is in this case. Yeah. And
I think Greg's lawyer kind of summed it up at the end of the trial, though, as he was exiting the court. So the journalist asked him, how do you feel about your client being found innocent today? And he said he was not found innocent. He was found not guilty. There's a big difference.
Yep.
So I feel like he's almost admitting to the fact that
he knows.
He probably did stuff, but you haven't proved your case enough.
Yep.
And so he goes free.
Yeah.
And look, as much as I think that sounds terrible, that a man who is quite clearly, guilty of this crime has gone free, as you said earlier, quite possibly this was a case of an accident.
Yep.
Gone entirely wrong, taken too far. If he had only gone to the, and admitted that there was an accident, he would have potentially then been charged with manslaughter rather than murder.
Yep.
And the time he would have gotten jail is quite possibly quite close to what he was on remand for.
Well, that's what they've said.
He was on remand for 17 months.
Yep.
So it's quite possible he spent his time in jail that he, for an, you know, if so he's so-called, I mean, I don't want to use the word innocent either, but for a not guilty man, he spent 17 months in jail. Did he do his time that he was deserved of? No.
That remains to, I mean, this is the thing. This is the other thing, sentencing laws. Like, so had he been found guilty, and I think given how good his lawyer was, had he been found guilty, it wouldn't have been for murder. It would have been for manslaughter.
Yeah.
What would his sentence have been anyway? It's
I mean, it's interesting to note too that, so I think 2002 they attempted an inquest, but it was rejected. 2006 they did do an inquest, and in that inquest it was found that it was highly likely that Greg was in some way responsible for Jaidyn's death.
Yep.
But it was actually found pretty much unequivocally that he certainly did dispose of Jaidyn's body, which one without the other sort of don't go. So
I found that really interesting because why would they find, I don't know, I couldn't actually find the reasoning. You actually can read the entire finding, which is 92 pages long. So I didn't read the whole thing.
Why not?
To be completely fair. But I find that really interesting that on the balance of probability, they found that he was involved potentially in Jaidyn's death, but that he definitely disposed of the body.
Yeah.
What he actually said was he contributed to the death and that he likely disposed of the body.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day here, unfortunately, I think Jaidyn's death is a culmination of poor parenting.
Yeah.
Ugh, is that awful of me to say?
No, it's not, because
I think there was so many points here where things could have been intervened to avoid a death of a beautiful baby boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. He would have been 28 years old now. So the thought of that, you know.
Whole life.
Yeah. His whole life has just gone.
Yeah.
On what would have been his 18th birthday, Belynda wrote a letter to him that she's actually only shared in a couple of places. So if you look for it, you can find it. It's a really heart-wrenching and heartbreaking letter.
Is it a letter to Greg or to Jaidyn?
It's to Greg on Jaidyn's 18th birthday.
Yeah.
She basically outlines the fact that she's lost everything in losing Jaidyn. She's lost her entire family. So I'm assuming relationships have been completely fractured since. I mean, the grieving of a parent who's lost a child, I cannot even fathom it. It would ruin your life. You could never. You are living with that you have to live with that for the rest of your life. Yeah. She says in the letter that she wakes up every day and thinks of him. She goes to sleep every night and often cries herself to sleep thinking of him and what he would be and what would be, you know, happening for him in his life at the time. The thing that I found really heart-wrenching about the letter, though, she says at the end of it, please write down what you have done and give it to somebody who can let us know once you're dead.
Yeah.
I need to know.
Because he lied so much. It's so muddy now what the truth is, because throughout this he changed his story so much, and none of it's obviously truth. I don't think there's any, but there's elements of truth. But then where are those bits of truth you can try and piece together? Becomes so complicated.
Have you seen that interview with him? I think it was a Channel 9 program.
Was that the Under Investigation? Yes. Yeah, I did. Yeah.
I don't think that he would have the brain cells to even be able to recall what happened. Like,
I think that interviewed himself enough.
He has.
And had done enough drugs over the time to
just completely write himself off. I don't think he'd have the frame of mind or have the ability to get his thoughts down on paper.
No. But having said that, he was, it's not an intelligence thing whatsoever, but he was incredibly manipulative. So something that really stuck out to me was Belynda wrote, it's an unpublished book that she wrote, and she allowed, she gave it to the Herald Sun at one stage. So snippets of it have been used in articles in the Herald Sun and also in the book written by Michael Gleason.
Okay.
And in it, she talks about, and so this was sort of around about the same time as the letter she wrote to Greg. So around about when Jaidyn would have been 18. So enough time passed for clarity in some parts of this, where she spoke about the fact that prior to this event, Greg would not acknowledge their relationship publicly. He would not, show affection in public. He would not speak to anyone as if she was a girlfriend. He didn't want anyone knowing they were together.
And he used to call her like Leskie's ex-missus.
Yeah, it was just always.
Like he would never refer. Yeah,
absolutely. But then the day he came home he literally walked from the police station
where he'd been formally interviewed.
Interview about this. He walked into the house and immediately embraced her and hugged her. And she said that was the first time he'd ever done that. And then beyond that, publicly, he then continued to call her his girlfriend and be affectionate. And there's interviews of the two of them together, and things like that shown where he is touching her, So it was a real manipulation of like, she in her own mind was like, this asshole's done it. And then he comes home from that interview so embracingly of her that she was like, well, how then? He's clearly an innocent man, because otherwise if he had done it, he wouldn't want to speak to me and wouldn't be this affectionate. And so it spun her out to kind of go, oh, well, maybe he didn't do it. So what a bloody head fuck.
Oh, massively so.
And I can feel empathy for that, of that manipulation from him, of then using her in that situation.
She was at the most vulnerable moment in her life when that happened. Her child was missing at that point.
Yeah.
She had no idea what had happened. She hadn't had a straight story from him. In fact, she'd had multiple stories from him. She didn't know what was going on.
She even tested him at one point, saying to him, would you like me to lie for you in the trial? And she is expecting him to come back with, oh, yeah, like tell him this, and he didn't. He responded with, oh no, the truth needs to be said. You just tell them exactly what you know and what you don't know.
I think that's because his lawyer had already spun what he was going to spin, and he thought he'd get off.
Yeah, but like for Belynda sitting there, she was like, well, he didn't take the bait.
That's right, it convinced her.
Maybe he is innocent. Like, yeah.
I see those interviews. I've watched those interviews of them together, and knowing what we know now, you can look at them in a bit of a different light, I suppose. Yeah. And now that all of the evidence has come out, those interviews were done before Jaidyn's body had been found.
Yeah.
And I wonder what Belynda thinks when she looks at that now.
Yeah, me too. Like, I mean, she's moved on and, got a great life. She's got 4 kids now to another man, and she's married. Yeah. So she's living, she's living a much better life than she was ever with Greg, that's for sure. And I'm really, really happy for her in that. But yeah, this is something she'll live with forever. And that the questions over what happened to him will forever be, which is so sad.
So very sad.
She was part of the group that got together and lobbied the government to change those double jeopardy laws, which will now allow, look, if there's significant evidence that comes forward, if he goes blabbing his mouth to someone and someone comes forward, then he could be tried again. So
if there's significant enough evidence.
Yeah. So, I mean, we can only keep fingers crossed that something happens for her sake to know then what the real truth is.
I feel I agree with you. That would be amazing. I just honestly don't think that's going to happen.
No. But I think, in her own, I think kudos to her to get some positive out of this, that in the future, whether it's this case or another case, that means that someone gets some closure. I think that's got to give you a little bit of heart, and that, look, she made some wrongs here that could have avoided this possibly happening. So I guess that's a positive out of it. Yeah.
For sure. Well, on that note, I think that sort of comes to the end of the case. It's incredibly sad and absolutely heart-wrenching.
That poor kid.
That poor boy.
And he's so cute.
Very cute.
Photos of him. He was
rosy red cheeks. Oh, cute.
Yep.
Yeah. Little lovey. All right, so I guess that's it for another week. We'll be back next week with a new case, and we'd love it if you could like and subscribe, as all the kids say, to our socials. So we've got Instagram, Facebook, and at 2 Crime Besties. And we're also uploading these to YouTube. So if you'd like to give us please don't judge. If you'd like to give us a follow over there, we're also at 2 Crime Besties on YouTube. So thank you everybody for listening, and we really look forward to catching up with you again next week.
See you next week, 2 Crime Besties.
Stay curious.